everybody, welcome back. I'm Mr. Norgren, and if you've not completed video lesson number 1, make sure you do that one before moving on to this one. Remember to write down the words I'm about to show you in your sketchbooks and then define on your own. Our second video is titled Creating an Identity Part 2, and you will learn the following. Space, balance, rulers and guidelines, Rasterized Type, transformations, and finally some selection tools. All right, let's get started. Hey, today you will continue the creative process of designing a logo that you will use for your photography business. We will start off by learning the art element of space. Space typically refers to the area that your image or graphic fills up, and it is made up of positive and negative space. In photography, space is also related to perspective, and images typically consist of foreground, middle ground, and background. So open up Photoshop, mine's already open, and then press Command-O, the keyboard shortcut, to open a new document, or actually open an existing document that was saved in your last name video lessons folder. So navigate to that, and we want to open up the initials logo. Click open, and now click on the word image in the menu bar up at the top of the screen, and go down to duplicate. Then go ahead and click OK. You can close the original one here, and then save this logo copy right there. So press Command S, and then we're going to go back to this last name video lessons folder, and this time you're going to name it your last name VL2, and actually that looks like VL12, sorry, Norgren VL2, and then click Save. Next step is on the menu bar, click on View up here at the top, and go down to Rulers. My rulers are already checked. You could also toggle the rulers on and off. Instead of going to View Rulers, you could use this keyboard shortcut right here, Command R. So Command R will show and hide the rulers that are happening right now. So I'll keep those on. So now that your rulers are visible, you can click inside the ruler and drag guidelines around the outside edges of your logo like this. So I'll go ahead and click in the top ruler. I'm going to go down to the bottom of my logo here, and then I'll go to the top here. And then I'm going to go to the left side here, click and drag to here. And if you notice that it kind of snaps to a place that you don't want, what you can do is turn snapping off. So I'll go ahead and move that away for now, and go to View, and then down to Snap, and uncheck that box. So now when I drag a ruler and go to here, it doesn't snap to an area that I don't want. It goes exactly where I want it to be. I'll go ahead and do a fourth one right over here on this side, and this will show me the space that my logo fills up. Rulers are very helpful because right now I notice that this part of the letter is outside of the edge of my logo. And if that's something that's important to you, which it is to me, I would want to adjust that. Okay, so now what you're going to do is choose the rectangular marquee tool. Shortcut for that is the letter M. It's right over here on the toolbar. So if I press M, it selects it. And next I'm going to drag inside my guidelines, click and drag, to make a square that's inside here. This is where you might want to turn snapping back on. So I'll go to View Snap, and that way it'll snap to the guidelines. And got there, and then it'll come down here and it kind of just snaps into place, which is kind of nice. Okay, next step is you're going to go to your layers palette, which is down here. You're going to click on the background layer, and then you're going to hide it by clicking this little eyeball icon just to the left of the icon of what your layer is. So that'll hide it. It'll show me that the background is now transparent. And then next you're going to click on the new layer icon just to the left of the small trash can down here at the bottom of the layers palette. There's a little new layer icon. And if you ever forget what these are, what you can do is roll your mouse over them and then don't move for a second, and then a description will pop up. so you can see what all the little functions are in Photoshop that we'll be covering later on in future videos. So for now, make a new layer, and then press the letter D to default your colors, D on the keyboard. You'll notice over here in the toolbar that my colors are now black and white. And then you're going to press Command Delete to fill your selection with white. So Command Delete on the keyboard, that'll make a little white square there. If you want to fill it with the foreground color, you could press Option Delete on the keyboard, and that would fill with black, or you can't see the letters now. So I'll go back to Command Delete, fill that with white. Okay, to get rid of the marching ants that are going around your selection here, you either click on Select, Deselect right down here, or use the keyboard shortcut Command D, which is what I always use. Okay, to see the space that your logo fills, you can now hide the type layers right over here in the Layers palette. And my logo is currently square-like. You can also hide the guidelines now by pressing Command semicolon. Command semicolon will get rid of those. Another aspect of space I would like you to pay attention to is positive and negative space. In this logo, the black text represents the positive space, and everything white is the negative space. The goal is to have a good balance between positive and negative space, which leads us to the principle of art called balance. To create visual balance with your logo, try to imagine one of those old-fashioned scales with two trays, and then place the black elements on one side and the white elements on the other side. Is it balanced, or is one side heavier than the other? Balance can either be symmetrical or asymmetrical, and I'll show you the difference soon. Okay, for this next part, we will now rasterize and transform our type. So start off by hiding all of your layers, except for the new layer you created earlier and filled in with white. So all of mine are off, except for this one. And now you can double click this and rename it white space. So I'll go ahead and type that in on the keyboard, and then press return. And now you're going to choose the type tool. Remember the letter T on the keyboard? That'll select the type tool for you. Gives me the type tool over here in the toolbar. Now click on your canvas and enter the first letter of your initials. Mine is R, and I don't really like that font for this, so I'm going to highlight that. And I'm going to change it to something else for now. I'll just go to Arial Black, keep it simple for now. Okay, then what you're going to do is click the checkbox right up here to apply that type. And don't worry about the size, we're going to adjust that soon. So go ahead and get the move tool up here. You can move this up in the top left for now. And then we're going to get the type tool again and do the second letter of your initials. And remember, if you get too close to the type here, it will add to this type layer. But if you go a little bit further away, it will create a new layer, which is what we want. So I'll go ahead and type in the next letter, and then I could do the check mark here. And I can move it around if I want to. Don't worry about too much about moving for now. We're going to do that very soon. And then I'll do the third letter. So type tool, click on my canvas, and then the letter N. Obviously your initials will be a little different. Another thing you could do, instead of clicking the checkbox, you could just click right over to the move tool and it will apply that type for you. Okay, next step is we're going to notice that all the type layers have a letter T next to it. That means that they are still editable, where you can get the type tool, you could highlight it, and you could change the font. But now what we're going to do is turn the letters into pixels. So the way you do that is you right click, or you can hold down the control key on the name of your letter right here, or your layer right here. Right click and then choose Rasterized Type right up here. So now that gets rid of that letter T, and it just shows the pixels on that layer. So I'll do the same thing for the other two letters. Right click, Rasterized Type, and then down here, right click and Rasterize Type. And then I'm going to go to the first letter of my initials, the letter R. I'm on that layer right now. And then choose Edit Free Transform from the menu bar, right up here. Edit Free Transform, which is right there. Or there's a keyboard shortcut, Command T. So press Command T, and you'll now see some handles on your letter here. What you could do now is right click or control click inside of this box and choose one of the transformation options. So I've got a bunch of them right here, and I'll just go ahead and stick with scale for now and make my letter a little bit bigger and maybe fill up most of the space here. And right now I can't see the letter E, so I'll move it off to the side for now. You'll notice that it gets a little pixelated, but once I press return, it will look a little bit better. So there we go. So what I'm going to do now is experiment with a few other ones, so just watch for a little bit, and you can go ahead and do the same, and then I'll come back and show you a couple more things here. So a little review here. I've got my letter R there. I can now click on this layer, and remember this little box up here, auto select. If that's unchecked and I try to click on this layer, or like a new layer here, it will not select that letter N because that's not the layer that's currently active over here. So I always keep that checked, and then I could click and drag on this letter, and now I know that that layer is selected in the layers palette. So I could do Command T here, and I could do some of the other distortions like skew, and I could change what this looks like and maybe put it down here. And I'm not going to put too much thought into this right now. If I were doing this like for a real logo, I would spend some more time. So I'll just go ahead and move it up like this for now. Press return. Okay, so now let's try the N. I'll press Command T, and I'll start by scaling it up a little bit, making it fill up a little bit more of the space here. So remember, I want to try to have a little balance between the positive and the negative space here. So that looks good. Another cool thing you could do is perspective. I like this one a lot, where you could stretch this out a little bit and have a little perspective in the end. I do have some overlapping happening with this letter E, but I'll show you something you could do in just a minute with that. So now I've got my 3 letters there. The one that I did for practice, I spent a little bit more time on, so let me show you a couple more things here on this new one. So they currently have about a 50-50 asymmetrical balance between white and black space. A symmetrical balance design would look something like this. If you've got 2 letters in your name and you want to flip them, that's another cool technique. So all I did here was press Command T and then right click and choose flip horizontal, and that's a fun one to use. Or you could flip vertical. So that would be a symmetrical design because it's perfectly balanced on the right and left. It's kind of like you put a mirror there. Okay, you can also add a layer style, which is kind of fun to do. So I'll go back to this little practice one here and add a layer style to my letter R. And if you remember the layer styles from the last video, they're down here in the layers palette. So I'll go to my letter R, click on the little FX at the bottom here, and go to stroke. And then I'm going to choose white for the color. And then I'm going to adjust the size a little bit here. So let's see what happens when I adjust the size. There is some, I think there's some overlapping. Now it's hard to see what's happening here because I think the E is in front of the R. So watch this. Let's go ahead and do a basic stroke here. Click OK. And it's kind of good that this happened because you can't see the stroke right now because E is above the R. But if I move this R above the E, you'll see not much happening. Oh, there's the stroke. Aha, see that? So now you can see that there's a little bit of that edge that's happening on that R. Okay, next thing that you can do is, this is kind of cool too. You can right click on your layer style down here. Right here where the layer style is. I could right click on it and I could choose create layer. So now this layer is, or this stroke is just a layer. I don't know if you'll be able to see it because white is the background. So if there were parts of this that you didn't want, like up here that you didn't need, let's say I put on a different color background here. Actually, let me do this for the white space. You don't have to do this right now, just kind of watch. I'm going to select this and fill it in with a different color so we could see what's happening here. So you can see the stroke around the entire R, but let's say I wanted the stroke only around here. Since I put it on its own layer, what I could do is get the eraser tool right over here. I could hold my mouse there and that tells me it's the eraser tool. Then I can get a bigger brush, use the bracket keys to make the brush a little bigger, and I could actually erase part of this stroke that I didn't need. And just get rid of it just like that. So that's handy when you start to design your final logo. Remember, this is just a practice logo. It's not your finished logo at all. You're just still going through the creative process of learning new techniques. Alright, so let me get that back to white. Okay, for our last step, I will show you how to select and modify areas of your initials. My favorite selection trick is to hold down the Command key and click on one of the icons in your layers palette like this. So I just did this a second ago to show you that different color background. But if I hold down the Command on the keyboard and then click right here on the icon of the letter E, not on the letter E, but this little icon right here, see where I'm clicking? I can click on that and it'll load the selection of the E. So let's say I wanted to have this part that overlaps the N filled with white. I can do that. But first I want to deselect the rest of this. So if I get the polygonal lasso tool over here on the toolbar, right up near the top, click on that, it's the letter L. And then if I hold down the Option key, I'm going to subtract from this selection. So I'll start right here on the edge of the N, come down to where the N stops about right there. And then I could just do a big loop all the way around the outside. And what this is doing is it is subtracting it. So let's get back to the beginning here. If you can't find where you started, you could always double click and it'll get you back to where you were. Oops. Let me get rid of that. So now I've got this part that's overlapping the N. I can go ahead and make a new layer, which I would recommend. And then I could fill that with white. Remember how to fill with the foreground or background color? Foreground is Option Delete, background is Command Delete. And right now you can't see anything because this layer that I just did it is below the N. So watch what happens when I move this new layer that I just created above the N. You can see that it's overlapping there. And that looks okay for now. Obviously I'm not thinking creatively about making this look super cool. I'm just trying to teach you some techniques. The one that I did earlier is like this. Looks a little bit better. Last thing that I'm going to show you is right up here. You can go ahead and delete basically some of your layers or some of the parts of the layers. So if you wanted to have a circle in this R instead of this shape, I could go ahead and go to the R layer and get the elliptical marquee tool. And then I could click and drag a circle. If you want a perfect circle, hold down the Shift key. And then just like in the last step, if you want to subtract from part of this selection, you would hold down the Option key. So you could cut a part out like that. Let me undo that, Command Z. If you wanted to add to it, you could hold down the Shift key. So I could add a little more like this. And maybe I want to have something like that. So guess what I do now? If I have that correct layer selected and I press the Delete key on the keyboard, it will delete that. If nothing happens, that means you had the wrong layer selected. So sometimes people will be on the wrong layer. So this layer is active. So if I press Delete now, nothing's happening because there's a selection here, but the N is the active layer. So go ahead and go back to the letter R, press Delete, and now I could press Command D to deselect. And you can see that it's starting to look similar to my little practice one here. So you've just learned a bunch of different techniques, and remember, it's all just practice for now. Eventually you'll utilize all these techniques for your final logo. Alright, nice job. You have learned the art element of space, the principle of balance. You've learned about rulers and guidelines. You've also learned how to rasterize type, create some transformations, and finally use the selection tools to modify pixels in your layer. In our next video, we're going to learn even more techniques for how to improve your logo. Once again, I'm Mr. Norgren, and I encourage you to always be present, professional, and polite in all your future business encounters. And stay tuned for another video or another slideshow that will show you how to use space and balance in your photography. Thanks, and have a great day.